Start your business for the freedom of time. Now you're tired of the hustle and grind. There's gotta be a better way. It's time to listen to Chill and Prosper. Welcome to Chill and Prosper. You're ready to chill and prosper with Denise Duffield-Thomas.
Hey gorgeous, it's Denise here. Welcome to this week's episode of Chill and Prosper. I am your host, Denise Duffield-Thomas, and otherwise known as Denise DT. And today it's a bit of a life update episode. A lot of people have asked me about this of like, what's happening with your sabbatical? Are you back in business now? A lot of questions come in around that. And so if you're new to this podcast and you don't really know me or, a lot of my backstory, I'll try and explain a little bit as I go. But for those of you who are regular listeners, then these might be questions that you have. And also feel free to send in questions too if you're curious about the way that I'm running my business or you want to know why, because I'm very intentional about things. And so if you're wondering why I've changed something in the business or I'm doing something in a particular way, there usually is a reason for it. Being a Virgo, there usually is a reason. So this is a bit of a life and business update in lots of different random areas. So if you don't know me, so I've been running my business full time since about 2011. I started out as a one-on-one life coach. So literally coaching people on anything that they wanted to, whatever, come to me with any problem, we'll work through it together. And then I went into just business coaching, and then I went into group coaching, and that's pretty much what I've been doing for well over 12 years now. In particular, my money boot camp. So in my money boot camp, people can join anytime. We have monthly calls, and we work through our money blocks together. So there's a curriculum that you can go through, and then there's a group that you can go through, and then we come together each month. I also once a year run a Sacred Money Archetypes course, and just to I have my podcast and things like that. Occasionally I run retreats, occasionally I speak at events. So my business has kind of evolved and shifted in very subtle ways over the last couple of years. Sometimes I'm more active, on video. Sometimes I'm more active and going to conferences and things like that. So there's a real intentionality usually, and even just the way I've run my business over the last couple of years has often been from a very practical sense. I've had 3 kids in the last 11 years. I live in a small town, there's a lot of things that impact how much I can be visible, for example, or how much I travel. Okay, so I would say the phase of life that I'm in at the moment is a real hermit introspection phase. And I think it's important to give yourself permission to be in different phases. I learnt this from my friend Natatlie MacNeil. I was in a mastermind with her for the last couple of years, really. But when I first got to know her, I remember she said something like, I'm having a bit of a easy year this year because we need to work on a lot of our back end systems, and we're just not going to do a massive growth year. And it just struck me. I went, you're allowed to do that? I thought you just kind of had to just keep on running and building things as you go. And that is very much that entrepreneur journey, right? Of going, you build the plane as you fly it, you just hustle. And definitely for the first, at least 8 years in business, we kind of doubled every year. And it was literally it was 60,000, 120,000, 250, 550, so it was 750, 1.2. We just kind of grew and grew and grew. And then it got to the point where I was like, what for? I'd kind of spent a lot of those business profits in building a really big house, and then having a holiday house, and buying vintage cars, and doing all these kind of stuff, and helping family members and giving a lot of money to charity. And it just got to a point where I was like, do I need to keep on growing the business? What am I doing it for? And I remember I was like, if I'm going to double again, so we did 5 million, let's do 10 million. And that was my password, 10 million. And I was like, but what for? And I'm not one of those people who it's like more is always better. Like it is to a certain point sometimes where I'm like, oh, how can I get better at that? But then I kind of peter out and just go, I don't have the motivation to continue. And so with that in mind of going, oh, I think I need a little bit of a fallow year, and a year where I don't have to make any big decisions, a year where we're not creating anything new. And some of this, it was a little bit from burnout, but I've been burnt out in the past and it was a little bit different to that. And let me explain why. So a lot of things, like a lot of people in the pandemic, a lot of things got pushed. So I had like speaking gigs that got pushed. I had book deals that like got rearranged timing wise. Filming commitments that I was supposed to do got pushed. And so everything converged in this 1 year. And it was 2022, I think. And so in that year, I redid all of my programs. I re-released a book. I had filming commitments all the time. I had all these speaking gigs that had been rearranged and all happened in the same time. And I was kind of a bit on fire. Like it was like, oh yeah, I'd just been recently diagnosed with ADHD. I was trying meds for the first time. I'd been diagnosed with perimenopause. I was trying those meds for the first time. I felt a little bit like unstoppable and all I wanted to do was work. But it put my life really out of balance with my family, especially with my kids, with my health, with my relationship. And so after that year, I went, I need to recalibrate this and I don't quite know how. And so my youngest was about to start kindy the following year. So we decided, let's take 4 months off before she starts school and let's go overseas to Europe to see Mark's family and have that be a little bit of a pause for us. We decided to sell our big beach house, which I did a whole episode on that, but basically it was like, it was just too public and busy and it just wasn't, we were like, oh, this was amazing to work towards and it was amazing for a while. It doesn't really work for our family anymore. And so having that trip gave us an excuse to have a big pause because we had to. It's almost like when I was preparing for maternity leave, I got so much done because I was like, there's going to be a baby in like 9 months, so I have to do it. And so that year before we went, we were leaving in the September and we're going to be September to January. I batched a whole bunch of my content. I cleaned up a few things. We like plugged some money leaks, just like subscriptions we didn't need, and obviously selling our house and stuff like that. And it was just really interesting how a separation of environment really helped me to get perspective on a lot of things in my life and business. And one of them was realizing, this has probably been my biggest aha from the last year, realizing how responsible I felt for everything and everyone in my life. Friends, family members, business partners, employees, greater community, just an over responsibility. That was the thing that was burning me out. It wasn't the workload, which I think a few people were like, oh, you seem to be doing a lot. And I felt like, I'm not. I'm actually really thriving in that, but I'm doing it from a place of over responsibility. I hope that distinction is clear. It's like, I felt like I had to be everyone's mum, sister, lover, best friend, all of these things all at the same time. And I think a lot of people in the community relate to this. I know not everyone has kids, but for those of you who do have kids, it just becomes a bit of a default sometimes that you take over responsibility. A lot of women take over responsibility. A lot of people who are nurturer archetypes take over responsibility for people. And so knowing that I had a deadline, I had to get on that plane, I went, I don't want to do some of these things. So one of the things I spoke about on a recent podcast was I was going to write a new book and I was going to hand it in to an editor just before, literally 2 days before I was supposed to go on the plane for this 4-month trip. And I went, actually, I'm going to put that aside and I'm not going to do it. Making that decision was huge for me because I realized I'm allowed to change my mind. I don't have to make that mean anything about myself. I'm making this from a conscious choice, not from a place of I don't think I can do it. I'm scared to do it. It was like, I know I can, but I also know that I'm going to get on that plane and I'm going to be exhausted, and then that's not going to be beneficial for my family. I won't be present for that, right? And so it felt like a really grown-up thing to go, oh, I don't have to do that. And a similar thing happened this morning, actually, on the way to the podcast studio. I'd submitted some cross stitches, some artwork to our local show. And just in the lead up for it, I just couldn't be bothered doing the things to make it happen, like mounting it and framing it and doing all this stuff. And this morning I was like, okay, how am I going to do it? It opens at 8:30 and then I have to be at the podcast studio. I was like trying to work out how to do it. And it was such a busy weekend. We had 2 sleepovers, we had all this stuff. And I went, am I allowed to just not do that thing? And even now there's probably 10% of me that's like, you are so pathetic. You didn't do it. You are so pathetic. And you should have done it. And you should have asked for help. And you should have like blah, 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 blah. And I just went, maybe I'm allowed to not do things. It's not important. Like no one's going to die from me not putting my cross stitch into the local show. Yes, I lost like $3 from the entry fee, and like over, you know, I submitted some stuff for the kid. I feel a bit bad about the kid stuff, but I realized this morning, I was like, oh, it's the cross stitch stuff that's supposed to be in today. The art stuff was supposed to be on last Friday. So I'm going to admit that to the kids and say, oh, I'm really sorry I missed the deadline. I feel bad about that for sure. But I was like, oh, that was just a stress that I added into my life that I actually don't need. And I'm allowed to just put it aside. It's just like, oh. And you might have things like that too, where you go, oh my God, I don't have to do that commitment. Now, Mark came to this realization. This blows my mind because Mark is someone, he's so hard on himself. He's like such a perfectionist. He's, you know, such a Boy Scout. And he said, oh, I'm not going to join the PNC this year. So the PNC is the Parent Teacher Association, like PTA. I know it has different acronyms in different countries. But when we were at our old school, he was the president of that. You know, he was doing all of these things all of the time. He was the ethics teacher at school. We did volunteering reading. Like we're just saying yes, yes, yes to everything. And he gets very burnt out. And when we had our recent session with our business coach, he was like, I've come to the realization that I can only do 2 big things. And I was like, what? Really? And he's like, yeah. And I can't add on a 3rd big project. So this year I've decided that until some of these other things are sorted out, I'm not going to volunteer to be on the PNC because I know he won't be satisfied with just being on it. He'll be president and whatever. He'll come out with a job. And it was a really big thing. And I feel like that's going to be such a breakthrough for us as a couple, but also in our family and in the business to go, we actually can't do all the things, or we choose not to do all the things. And that can be really hard for us both. We're both rulers in money archetypes, and we always underestimate the time involved, how much work there is, and we always overestimate our ability to do it because we're just used to doing it. You know, I was used to just, I'll just stay up all night and do it. And that's the thought I had last night, right? Where I was thinking, I've got to mount this cross stitch. I've got to find a frame for it. I was looking up, you know, Officeworks. Do they have matting? Because the matting I had wasn't working. I was like, do I need to go to a thrift store and trying to find a frame for it? And I was like, I'll just stay up all night. And then we were like, oh, let's watch a new TV show just came out. Let's watch that. And it was like, am I allowed to? And I had to just like really unclench that feeling in my stomach of when I was a little kid and I hadn't done my assignment. And I was like terrified to tell my mom, and it got later and later and later. And then I was thinking, I'll do it in the morning. And that's what I was like. I was like, I'll just get up really early and do it in the morning. But I had to come here for the podcast thing, right? And I was like, well, I'll just do my makeup and then I'll find a frame for this cross stitch. How was I going to do that? But that's just been my personality my whole life. And to give that up at the age of 45 is like, wow, that's just a big breakthrough for me. And I hope that someone listening, the reason why I talk about this stuff, and sometimes it feels like, Denise, you're just rambling shit. It's like someone listening is going to be like, am I allowed to not do that thing? Am I allowed to say no to that volunteering thing that I've been doing? Am I allowed to say no to that person who's been asking me to do the thing? Am I allowed to like get rid of that service I no longer want to offer? Yes, I give you full permission, and it's so liberating. So liberating to be able to do that. All right, let's take a break because I've got a couple of other updates that I hope will be inspiring for you to do something different in your life too. All right, I'll see you in a sec.
It's your time and you're ready for the next step. It's your time and you're ready for the next step. It's your time and you're totally ready for the next step. So many times we are waiting for the perfect moment, for all of the green lights, or for someone else to tap us on the shoulder and say, you're ready. But it has to come from inside you, and you can declare yourself ready now. Put your hand on your heart and try it with me. It's my time and I'm ready for the next step. If you know deep in your heart, even if you're scared, that you're ready to let go of some of your money fears and finally profit from your skills and talents, it's time to get to work. Your next step is to come and join us in Money Bootcamp. You can work with me as your money mindset mentor and join our beautiful community so you can really give yourself permission to make money and change the world. Click below to find out more, but don't wait any longer. Come and join us today. We're ready for you and it's your time and you're ready for the next step.
Okay, we're back. It just makes me laugh sometimes that some of the smallest things can be such a big deal. And yeah, not burning myself out to do this meaningless thing. Now, but what about if there are things that are really important to you? And so this has been, I think, the question and dilemma in my mind as I'm in this phase of life, right? So I'm in a hermit period, and I've had to almost set little rules for myself around this. So one of the things is I don't want to do any major travel this year. And I've felt this for the last 2-3 years, and I've still said yes to a couple of things. So I said yes to a couple of speaking gigs, and I always enjoy them when I'm there. I love having spoken at things. I love connecting with people. Like, it just makes me feel so good to do it. But the lead up for it, the logistics for it, the being away from home thing has been really hard. So for example, like a 3-day speaking gig for me, I'm in Newcastle, Australia. So I'm 3 hours from Sydney, which is our major airport hub. And then to get to the UK is probably 24 hours travel time on the plane. To get to like LA, it could be like 13, 15, 18 hours, depending on which way they go. And so that's usually a 3-day speaking commitment for me could be 10, 12 days away from home. And I know I often get sick, there's still a lot of viruses going around. And also, I'm so glad I had this feeling probably the last 2 years and saying no to things, because I was supposed to be in New York for something, and that's when there was massive travel delays everywhere. There's definitely still viruses going around. There's a lot more turbulence. There's a lot just uncertainty, right? And I hate uncertainty in my life. And that's what I realized I needed in this period of my life is less stress, less surprises, more certainty, and more control over my environment. Because I can't control what's going on. It kills me to see like all the stuff that's happening in the US. I can't vote in the US. I don't have a senator that I can call. It's really hard to watch that. It's hard to watch politicians who are voting against the interests of the planet and hungry kids. Like, it makes me feel so helpless and angry. And I know that if I go down that rabbit hole, I get paralyzed. I get hypervigilant in looking up the news. And so when the last US election happened, I have not been able to listen to a political podcast since then. It just makes me sick to my stomach. And yes, it's very privileged to be able to do that. I still find out everything, by the way. I'm on Twitter all the time. You find out everything. And realizing that how that hypervigilance was really making me feel sick, I knew that I needed to be very mindful about what I was putting into my brain. And so now I've been listening to, actually the podcast I've been listening to the most is the Dax Shepard podcast with Monica Padman, I think is his co-host, she's amazing too. And they interview celebrities. They're like deep dive, hour and a half interviews. And I've been loving listening to that. It's helped my nervous system. It's still really interesting. It sparks my creativity. And then I find out what's happening in the political sense, you know, just on Twitter, but I'm not just like actively, you know, immersing my whole body in it. That has been really needed for me. Like, again, I'm not saying don't listen to political podcasts. For me, I couldn't do it anymore. Because it was activating a lot of anxiety and panic for me. And part of this new phase for me too is being very mindful about the phase of life that I'm in and surrendering to that. Okay, so let me explain what that means for me. Perimenopause has been a game changer for me. And I heard a lot of people talking about it before it happened to me. And I just kind of dismissed it. And fair enough, if you're in that phase of life too and you're not there yet, you just go, whatever, it can't be that bad. It's not that it's bad. It's just that I feel like it does, you're a different person. Just like before and after puberty, you're a different person. And I want us to think of it as that way as well. I had a lot of people trying to gaslight me a little bit when I started talking about my perimenopause of always like, don't surrender to it. Like, don't even go there. And imagine if you'd said that to a teenage girl who got her period for the first time and you're like, it's not happening. Just will it away. You know, like, don't surrender to it. Don't fall into that trap. And it's like, it's just a phase of life, right? And now knowing so many people my age who are doing it and realizing, oh, we're just at the same. It's just that we just might need a bit of help. And for me, I'm taking all of the HRT that the universe has. I'm putting gels, I'm putting creams on, I'm putting stuff up and around my clacker. I'm going for all of it. I love the science of it. And I'm like, give me more. Give me all of it. Because I'm like, why should we suffer? And when you see some, you know, like sometimes older women and they're like, well, we just suffered through it. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to, not at all. And why should you? So I think that has influenced a lot of the things that I've changed in my life. I think my, not so much my attention span, but my capacity has changed. My capacity for risk has changed. I'm not willing to like really upset my nervous system a lot. I feel like I've diminished decision-making power. And that was one of my first symptoms. I think Mark would say, what do you want to do about this? And I'd go, I don't know. And there's still a little bit of that even with HRT. And so I'm like, I'm trying to take away as many unnecessary decisions as possible. So that's why my business is very simple, because I know, hey, I'll go and do my podcasts. I sit here, I do 12, so I've got a quarter's worth. After that, don't ask me what graphic, what picture you should use. Just do it, you know? And so I just can't have a lot of uncertainty, a lot of stress kind of in my life around that. But what I've also noticed is as I've been around other women who are in this phase of life too, I can see the kids I can see the teenagers that they were. And I went to this beautiful mummy-daughter retreat and we were like playing games and making up dances and stuff like that. Not just the kids, but us too. And I was like, oh, I can see who you were as a teenager and I can see that in you now. And so I'm surrounding myself with people who are rediscovering passions and who are passionate about things and seeing them as these just beautiful, ageless, like beautiful beings. It's just so magical. And so the biggest thing that I've done around that is obviously going to ballet. You've probably heard me talk about this a lot, but I don't think people understand how meaningful it is for me. So growing up in a single parent household where we moved a lot, dance was my refuge because dance is very, not regimented. Ballet is regimented for sure, but it's like once you learn something, it can be the same everywhere. So even if we moved, you know, the time step in tap is the same, like the bar is the same, the positions are the same. And so it was a great place where I could go and could forget about things for a while. I could forget about that gnawing pit in my stomach that I hadn't done my homework. I could forget about things that were happening at home that were very stressful for a young person to deal with. I could, forget about money troubles that my family were dealing with, things like that. And I would always come away feeling really happy. And so I thought that part of my life was over. And so now I've joined an adults ballet studio called EV Dance. They do the Silver Swans curriculum, and they do, you know, point exams, intermediate, advanced, beginners. And so now I'm doing 7 classes a week, which is over 3 days. So I do a advanced and a point class, I do an exam and a PBT, which is like strengthening your body. Then I do an intermediate and a point class, and then I do a performance class. And so for me, it's reconnecting to that inner child and her loves and passions, who all I wanted to do was dance, like tap, jazz, ballet, loved it. And also, it's also a great place for me where I'm not responsible for anyone. That's one of the best things too. And there's a few people who know me from the business world, but most people don't. And they just know me as Denise, their fellow dancer. And I need that in my life. I need people who see me as who I am. They see that in oh my God, I'm going to cry. They see that in a teenager, and that person, not someone who's like, oh, you're Denise, you're a business coach, you know everything, or I admire you, or I look up to you. It's like, we're just people. We're just dancers learning a dance. And that is so important to me. And I realized that's more important to me in this phase of my life than hitting big business goals. And actually, I'm starting to just plan my whole life around dance now. It's like, oh, I can't speak at your conference because I've got dance. Sorry. I did rearrange one thing for a friend, but it's a Zoom call. And I'm like, no, that's more important to me in this phase of life. And that's okay. The other thing I've surrendered to, and I guess this is probably a hard thing for me too, is surrendering to being a mum. Now, this might sound really strange. I've never strongly identified as being a mum. I never super wanted to have kids. Mark kind of had to talk me into it. And I definitely, I found pregnancy super easy. For the most part, I found, just having a baby. Breastfeeding was easy for 2 of my kids, horrible for 1. And it was just felt really kind of just okay, fine. Where it got really hard for me, not even in the toddler life, I think it's harder for me now, of just surrendering to a phase of life where, yes, I could go traveling, but there's consequences to that. Yes, I could homeschool them, but I don't want to. Yes, we could go traveling as a family. I don't want to. And so I have to surrender to this phase of oh, I'm a mum right now, and they need me intensely for this short period of time. And it's been a really interesting thing to surrender to, because I feel like I came to that pretty late. I think a lot of my friends who had kids surrendered to it when they were babies. It didn't bother. I did a lot of work. I did a lot of creative work when they were young, because I was just typing breastfeeding, la, 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 this is so easy. And now I'm oh, the days feel really short. By the time they go to school, and I'm home at 9:30, and then maybe I've got a ballet class, and then we have to pick them up at they have to be at their school at 2:30 to pick them up at 3. That is a very short day. And they're what are we gonna eat? And Mark does a lot of that stuff, and we have had really great help over the last couple of years. But it's just surrendering to that has been interesting for me as a human and a person. And also wanting to show them, hey, my hobbies are really important to me. I actually think that I did show them for a while that work was really important to me. And now I actually wanted to show them that, hey, ballet is really important to me. And I go to ballet class too. And all of our ballet tights are all lined up, and, we're all sharing hair ribbons, and eventually we'll all share leotards when they're teenagers, I'm sure. And I'm loving that. I'm loving showing them that. I wouldn't say I'm always loving being a parent, because it can be really hard. Anyone who's oh, I don't think it's for me, I'm yeah, it's really hard. And so, yeah, surrendering to that's been really interesting. But, oh God, there's so much more to say that I haven't even really gone into yet. Some of that too for me is, surrendering, simplifying, and then trying to find a way to balance work back into that. So this year, I'm doing interviews again, which I took a break from for about 18 months, which is, for me, I'd do 200 a year easily, podcast interviews. I think I did 3 last year. And so I've started opening up my calendar and trying to again go, I don't want to do them all through the week. And so I've opened up my calendar for Thursday morning from 7 till 12, because I go to the movies on Thursdays. And literally it's filled up. So every Thursday I'm going to have 5 interviews in a row. I'm like, that would be interesting to see getting back into that. And I've booked, I'm doing some filming in October. I've got a couple of photo shoots this year. So I do feel like I'm getting back into it, but I'm still trying to find that balance, right? If I did too much work and then I did no work, and then now what's the new normal going to be in that? I don't know what our income will be necessarily this year. Of course, we've got numbers that we've got to hit just to, keep our family going and all of the expenses that we have. But that's not important to me so much this year either. And yes, it's a place of privilege for sure. So I'm in a space where I'm like, how can I serve myself and my family and make sure everyone's okay? And then the question for me is, what do I do with that excess energy? And the kernel is still there of going, of course, make money, change the world. Of course, that is the thing. And I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to create new programs. I'm just trying to find a way to balance those things, right? Wanting to help people, wanting to help the planet. And you know what's been really helpful? Every time I think, well, maybe I just retire and never talk about anything, because what have I got to talk about? I'll get a message, or I got a voice note recently where someone said, I recommended your book and it changed her life. And I go, oh, my work is still helpful. And so any feedback that you can give, and anytime, like, I'm not someone who reads reviews or gets my team to send every little piece of, praise, because I don't want my life to be like, they love me, they hate me, they love me, they hate me. But just to know that is really appreciated. And if there's an area where you go, oh, that's really helped me, talk more about that. That's the sort of feedback that's really helpful, because then I know, okay, cool. I don't feel like I have to fix and change everything of everyone's life anymore, but I still want to show up and be helpful and useful, and to find ways to manage that with also being a human, a mom, a ballerina, a wife, a 45-year-old woman in the world, and to try and find what that means for me for this next phase of my life. I was going to say half of my life, but I'm like, no, you don't even have to think that far ahead. You can just think, what's the theme for this year? What's the theme for next year? So hopefully that's been helpful. And yeah, I've just got one final thought for you after the break. Just one last little thing that has been helpful for me too. Okay, see you in a sec. You joined Money Boot Camp
in 2019.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing that I think the most important element of boot camp for me, biggest learning, was about permission. A permission to go, it's okay for me to talk about money, to make money, to have a safe space to talk about money, but also understand that the things that blocked me around money that I didn't even know existed, that I could deal with, and then be able to go, okay, reframe it in a way that was really positive for me to be able to, create something completely different for myself.
Especially as an artist, right?
Definitely.
The artist mentality.
Absolutely. So that permission, that whole permission thing was, okay, if it's okay for me to make money out of art, what does that look like? And the whole journey around that.
Okay, welcome back, and thanks for listening to this episode where it's just hard for me sometimes to be vulnerable, but also not make it a lesson, but also make it interesting for someone to listen to about, like, why is she talking about her life? But something that has been helpful is that concept of seasonality in your life and your business. And I've heard so many people talk about it from, feminine cycles or lunar cycles or, life cycles. And I would always go, yeah. Yep. Because I didn't realize that I was in a real summer period of my life. And I even had that as almost an internal branding tagline. We'd always say to, graphic designers or my team, we'd say, it's always summer in Lucky Bitch World. And it's because we wanted people to always see, like, just this sunny, breezy, Kate Hudson, easy breezy, she's one of my icons, of going, I always want people to feel chill and easy breezy. And so I didn't really even show seasons so much in my marketing. You might see it occasionally where I'm wearing a jumper or whatever, but largely most of my photo shoots are with a summer palette, a summer feel, which is great. But then I was trying to live my life like that too, of going, I'm always in activation mode. I'm always in harvest. I'm always in this thing, and feeling like I had to hide the parts of myself that were winter or autumn, where I wanted to go in a little bit deeper. And so my realization too was that my business and my life have a different cycle. And it's okay for me to, as a human, to have hibernation cycles, to have winter cycles, to have introspection cycles. And it doesn't necessarily need to reflect in my business, but one can't guide the other. You know, Lucky Bitch Denise can't make my life always in summer. Okay, so really, without going into a whole new tangent, what I realized that I was so good at doing these bursts of work. So it was like, oh, I'll batch my podcast and I'll do, you know, a quarter in one go. But then it was like, oh, what else can I batch? Oh, I'll batch my social media. Oh, I'll batch my thing. And so instead of going, I'll do this big phase of work and then I'll chill and relax for a little bit, it was like, I'll do all of those because I can. And so that doesn't work. So sometimes that is acceptance or surrender for the seasonality of your life. Maybe you're in a caring phase of your life at the moment where you have caring responsibilities for people in your life, kids, animals even, and you're just like, you know what, I'm just surrendering to that. I know friends who have to care for family members or parents. Maybe you have you might be going through cancer treatment at the moment too. You know, there might be something where you're going, this isn't forever, but it is for now. You might be like me in a phase where your kids need you a lot. And I'm just like, I know that's not going to be forever. I'm trying to have glimpses of myself. I'm like, oh, wow, when they're out of home, like, think of all the things we could do. And it's okay to not live all of the seasons of your life in one go. You don't have to write all of the books of your career right now. You don't have to live all of those lifetimes all at the same time. And for me, that has meant giving up some of those side identities, side quests that we're hovering around, and being okay with that. Okay, so appreciate and honor the season of your life. And I would love to hear in the comments, what season are you in? Sometimes you're in a hustle mode season, and that's okay. And you just like, we're just working and making hay and we're doing all the things, and yeah, we're burning out. And or for me, that was when I hired a lot of people at home, and I hired, you know, babysitters and full-time housekeepers. I was like, I'm just in this mode. You might be in a autumn mode where you're like, you know what, I'm like saving things for the future. I'm preparing for the future. I'm, you know, nutting things away, batching things for the future so I can take some time off. You might be in a winter time, right? You might be in a time where you're like, I'm not doing anything big. I'm taking things down to the minimum. I'm putting things to rest. You might be in a spring and a renewal stage. And I would say I am in a spring stage now because I've had a winter for the last 18 months, pardon me, and I'm feeling those shoots of renewal. And I think the lessons that I'm trying to get in this new time is to remember that it is a cycle and to not say yes to everything. And so that period might last longer than you think. You know, it might be longer than an actual season of a couple of months. It could be a couple of years that you're in a phase, and that's okay. So I would love to hear your stories. Please, you can DM me, you can email me, you can ask follow-up questions for us to do on a future episode. And just embrace the season that you're in. And I hope this life update has given you some spark or inspiration or permission to do something for yourself. All right, chat soon. Bye.
Start your business for the freedom of time. Now you're tired of the hustle and grind. There's gotta be a better way. It's time to listen to Chill and Prosper. Welcome to Chill and Prosper. You're ready to chill and prosper with Denise Duffield-Thomas.